I think the best thing to do is to get a study buddy. And not just because, not studying, making flashcards. What you're doing now is you are actually looking for one or more colleagues who are maybe at the same stage you are. This is where you go back to your folks from residency who are all preparing for the boards at the same time. There are other hopeful networks if you're involved in something, for example, people that you may have met through the resident assembly. That would be a resource. So other people who are at the same stage and are going to be willing to give up the time. In an era of Zoom, you can basically give each other an oral exam. What I would suggest is that you take the time, you prepare your cases, going kind of point by point down that rubric, and then you give that exam to your residency buddies and ask them to be rigorous and hold your feet to the fire and say, oh, well, you really didn't tell me what your thinking was there in terms of the differential diagnosis, or why did you choose to do an IMHS instead of doing a sliding hip screw? So these are other people who may not be in your subspecialty area, but they may know enough about, you're not that far out from residency that they can actually comment effectively. And you do it back and forth. Additionally, you want to find somebody who is in your subspecialty area. If you're going to be, my area is foot and ankle, I would have gone to someone who's an attending who's been through the board process, someone who's not an examiner because we're not allowed to give mock exams, but somebody who's been through the process and how to say, well, you might want to think about this, or if you made that decision, you should be aware of these other choices. Why do a total ankle and not a fusion? So both of those, I think, are extremely effective ways. And this is something where you have to get up and talk it through. Even people who are very facile with public speaking, it's a different process. And I think that people who are very comfortable with presenting the case and thinking it through will find it's an easier time. But more importantly, having other peers push you is where you will think of things that you need to go and look up. And that's where the independent study comes in, is that, I thought I knew why I made that choice, but I don't always use aspirin for VTE prophylaxis. What really are the indications to go to a different choice? And making sure you know that literature. Those things that keep coming up in your practice, you should be acquainted with the literature on. And that's where you go and do that extra bit.